me is Tom Rogers, history teacher and CEO of Teachers Talk Radio. A very good afternoon to you, Tom. Thank you for joining me. Is it a surprise to you that more and more teachers, 15% according to one stat and 19% according to another one, this is from the Institute of Education at Manchester University, these are just their figures, are actually looking to start their careers abroad?
It's not a surprise at all. I think if you went back maybe 10, 15 years, most teachers you would talk to would say, look, I want to get my, as it was known, NQT year done back then. You know, my training year, my NQT, maybe do a few years in the UK and then potentially maybe make the move. But that has changed so much in the sense that I think COVID's changed things as well. Work patterns have changed. That's also impacted teaching in particular. But a lot now are just saying, you know what, I can't be bothered with this. Why would I, as a young single person, why would I put myself through what many teachers could potentially put themselves through by going into teaching in the UK?
So, Tom, what are the things that are putting off teachers from staying home? And obviously, they're going through their training. It's not an easy training to do. Part of that training, you are going into schools, learning about how to teach and all of it. It's part of the exercise you do. What are the causes? Why do they want to leave?
So, I mean, you've beautifully summarised a lot of them already there. But I think one that you maybe didn't mention as much, well, it was touched on actually in that report, was behaviour. I think student behaviour has always been an issue, but I think since COVID, it's got harder for teachers to teach. I know that Teacher Tap did a survey a few weeks ago, and it came out like from 2018 to present, every single year now, teachers are now saying it has got harder with behaviour. It has got harder, and it is harder. Right. I think Ofsted still exists. It is still sort of hanging over so many school leaders and so many teachers. It doesn't matter how you reform Ofsted, while it's still there, while you have these snapshot 2-day inspections that are built up to over a period of years, it just creates this awful sort of background pressure. And many people respond to that pressure in different ways. You cannot blame a school leader for enacting policies that increase stress or increase teacher workload because they're worried about the Ofsted inspection. Many will do that, and they might get slated for it, but actually it's the process that's there which causes them to maybe make some of those decisions. So there's two. I think salary. Yeah, I mean, salary has gone up. It's going up to 30,000 for a new teacher. I think it's been at around 23. That will help, but it's still, if you imagine, there's jobs now being advertised in Belgium that are sort of 55 to 60,000 euro salary, regardless of experience. And then, of course, you even look in the Middle East and Asia, the salaries now are astronomical, the tax-free benefits and everything else. I mean, that's always existed, though. Make no mistake, there has always been a massive salary discrepancy with those places in the UK, but that still hasn't driven the numbers that we're seeing now.
Well, you see, Tom, that's a very interesting observation that you're making there, because obviously pay is a key factor, but it's not the only factor, because you just touched on it there, that pay has never been high compared to some of these other places, but yet we didn't have the exodus that we're now seeing. So it sort of indicates to me that it's a multitude of factors, and there might be something in the other factors that you're mentioning, particularly around discipline. Now, you speak to teachers all the time. You are CEO of Teachers Talk Radio. What are they saying about discipline in the classroom? Because I tell you, whenever I speak about teaching, you get a bunch of well-meaning liberals having a pile on to me on X now, whatever it's called these days, the platform formerly known as Twitter. Sounds like Prince, doesn't it? Anyway, the point is, they come on and they say, oh, well, you know, children need to be children, and when you talk about discipline and respect and imposing an iron fist, they don't like it. So you've got all these well-meaning adults, actually, who are not helping.
I think there's obviously different views on what's going on. You've probably got people who are very worried about the sort of decline in the authority that a teacher has in the classroom.
Yes.
The idea that now teachers might be sort of, if you like, the scrutiny and the accountability that a teacher might face when it comes to decisions that they make, that maybe 10, 20 years ago they might not have. They would have got auto backing for that default backing for those sorts of decisions on behaviour. Whereas now, I do think that in not in all schools, by the way, there's some that really back their teachers.
Yeah.
I work in one now that's fantastic, and I know I'd have full backing from the leaders in my school to do my job on a professional level. But there are schools out there where teachers every day are having to explain so many decisions they make when it comes to behaviour, and it's a drain. It is just a drain when your authority is eroded to such a point where you are out there to be sort of, I don't know, to be questioned and judged, and it can be horrible.
Is that by the kids or by the parents or both?
It can be both. I think it can be both, 100%.
But that must be that must be really eroding to one's desire to do the job and one's zest for it, if you're constantly having to feel that you're trying to teach with one hand tied behind your back.
Exactly. Now, it mentioned in that report about other countries, it's also the cultures in those countries, where you have you think about Asia and you think about the way teachers are supported and held up in some other countries as real sort of figures of sort of respect, who deserve that level of respect. And I just think, unfortunately, in this country, and I don't know whether it's the only country, I'm sure if you talk to some American teachers or whatever, I'm sure they probably say the same, that in Britain, unfortunately, that has eroded away to a point now where you look at the rise in teacher assaults going on. Teachers being assaulted.
But it's appalling, this teacher assault thing. I mean, it's absolutely appalling. And the thing I find very odd is that it's not a question of resources and wealth, because you make the point about cultural issues here. You go to parts of Africa or Asia, which may have a lot less GDP per capita than we have in this country, and you'll find kids in the class facing the front, listening to the teacher, paying attention. And if they don't pay attention, they're going to clip round the ear. Not that I'm advocating corporal punishment, but you get the point, right? A discipline is enforced and people are in school to learn. Too many kids in this country at the moment, it seems to me, Tom, are not there to learn and are not being encouraged to learn either.
But there will be many who would disagree with you on that. And I understand the approach of sort of, be sort of getting to know students more. Yes. I'm all in favour of that. I'm all in favour of that. And, 20 years ago, children would have been left behind in our system. I'm all on board with that. What the problem is, though, across the board is when teachers are not able to do their jobs and not able to have control in the classroom that they should be able to have, when they have to look over their shoulder all the time. Yeah. That you can't. Why would you put up with that? You wouldn't. You
wouldn't put up with it. Tom, let me ask you this final question. I've heard from various teachers I've spoken to in recent months that the job of the teacher has become increasingly challenging because the teacher is meant to be a multitude of things. So not just a teacher, a surrogate parent, a social worker, a security guard, all sorts of things. I mean, how has the nature of the job changed given some of the challenges that you and I have just been speaking about for the last few minutes?
Gillian Keegan told head teachers to get in a bus and go and pick all the students up and take them to the school. So if you want the best example you can get of where we're at.
So now you're a bus driver as well.
That is a really good one. Head teachers need to almost take, get in the bus themselves, drive around their cohort area and pick students up and take them to the school if they're not attending.
Terrible.
But the response, this comes down, and I always come back to this, and it is boring, but it does come down to responsibility, individual responsibility and accountability. And unfortunately in this country, we have lost sight of those two things. We have sort of forgotten about them as being really sort of important. Individual responsibility and accountability. Yep. And now we're left with this situation where we're in.
It's a really dire situation. Tom, thank you very much indeed. That was Tom Rogers, history teacher and CEO of Teachers Talk Radio.